All right, guys, welcome back to the, I guess, episode 2 of the Surfside Recovery Podcast. Today, me and Ian are going to discuss, like...
Are we recording right now?
We are recording right now.
Good.
Okay. That was my intro, but I'll start the intro over again.
No, go ahead.
So,
continue.
Welcome back to the second...
Hour.
Yeah, the amateur hour and the second edition of the Surfside Recovery Podcast. Today, me and Ian are going to go through some tips that kind of like, you know, set the tone for your day. Like what you do when you wake up to really set it up for success. The main thing I do, me and my roommate were actually talking about it this morning, is making my bed. You know, there's that really popular video going around of like a naval commander giving a commencement speech at some university. He's like, the first thing you could do in the morning is if you start your day off by making your bed. That way you're accomplishing a goal right off the bat. And then I guess the theory behind that is you know, every time, if you're starting out accomplishing a goal, every other goal after that is going to be easier.
Yeah, there's also in 12-step recovery, the saying, messy bed, messy head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, I don't know, I think drill sergeants as parents, I actually don't know if that's true, but for some, when I was in military school, I mean, we had to make our beds.
Right.
I got kicked out of school in 8th grade and was in Valley Forge Military Academy up in Wayne, Pennsylvania, for 9th grade. And we had to make our beds with hospital corners.
Of course.
It was a nightmare. It was bad. But I don't know. Eventually, I think, like, getting up, making the bed, like, just starting to, like, do something, I think is productive. Especially when we're talking about, like, being in recovery and really just trying to be, like, better ourselves. Like, sometimes it's those, like, little things that just make things feel clean. Like even if you, like, clean your house, like, take a Sunday and clean your whole house top to bottom, bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, like, it feels lighter, right? Like, the air feels better.
Yeah, I always say that you can really tell, like, where I'm at in my AA program based on the cleanliness of my car. Like, if there's, like, receipts everywhere, if there's old fast food wrappers, or if there's trash, or just whatever. I mean, if you look in the backseat of my car and it's clean, like, I'm probably in a good headspace. You know,
Messy head, messy bed.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, you know, I paid for the car. So if I keep the stuff that, like, I've purchased, like, clean and orderly, it's like showing a little bit of gratitude too. And I think there's, like, direct correlations between, like, you know, am I taking care of my stuff versus how I actually feel. So I think there's definitely something to be said about that. You know, I know in the morning, usually what I do is the first thing I do is I wake up and I take a shower, right? And the night before even, I set my coffee pot up. So when I wake up, I turn the coffee pot on, I go in the shower, I get out of the shower, I get dressed, I make my bed, I drink my coffee, and then everything goes from there. Do you do anything like the night before to prepare yourself, like, for the day ahead? Do you prepare, like, a week out? Like, what?
I mean, I don't particularly want to talk to anybody the night before.
What do you mean? You don't want to be on the phone with anybody the night before?
Yeah, I don't want to interact with people.
Okay. What's the cutoff?
I mean, I'd like the cutoff to be 9 o'clock.
Right.
Because, right, like, I want to talk to my wife, obviously, but, you know, like, I typically start working roughly around 5 a.m., and what my morning looks like is the dog wakes me up. I wish I set an alarm, but I don't. And quite honestly, even if the dog doesn't wake me up, I'm up somewhere around 5 anyway. The dog wakes me up. I let them out, grab some coffee. I try to stay off the phone for at least a good 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
It is not always realistic.
Now, when you say stay off the phone, do you mean like checking emails on your computer?
I try not to touch it.
To any like sort of electronical thing.
I mean, it's plugged in next to my bed in case there's, like, an emergency or something at night that I need to address. But, yeah, like, I unplug it, I put my watch on, I put it in my pocket, and then I shut the door because obviously my wife is still sleeping. So, and then I try to take some, like, quiet time prior to, like, jumping into work, whether that's I've actually been reading this book now and again, Living Life of Awareness by Don Miguel Ruiz.
That's the same with the 4 Agreements guy, right? Is the same guy? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been trying to read a little of that, or just really kind of like spending some time. One of the books, one of the A books, it talks about we think about the 24 hours ahead, it says. And, I think for me that's like really important is like what's going on. Then I start by opening up my schedule. I look at my calendar, whether I have office hours or whatever I may need. Then I go to the email, see if there's anything I needed to address from the previous evening, or send out for the team to prepare for the day. And then more recently than not, there's another line in 12-step literature. It says, it talks about growing and understanding and effectiveness when we're talking about the ladder of the steps. And for me, so that whole like morning routine has changed over the years. Of course. Where at some point it was like, I was doing very formal, strict meditation, upwards of a half hour on a regular basis. I've had many periods where it's like 10 minutes or whatever, but ultimately this idea of like growing and understanding and effectiveness. So there's a bunch of different podcasts I listen to. One's called Chasing Excellence. One is this guy Gary V, this guy Dave Ramsey, one called Entre Leadership, and basically they're all different, I would say experts in their fields, whether it's around like nutrition, fitness, financial stability,
entrepreneurism.
Yeah, and Gary Vee is kind of tough because typically the stuff he talks about isn't really the way I'm applying it, but
but it's still that same thought process of like trying to learn and grow.
Yeah, like what are you going to do different? Like how are you going to grow, right? Because the truth is, with a significant period of time in recovery, like I don't want to be the person I was yesterday. I don't want to be the person I was last year or 3 years ago. If I was the person I was, when I had 10 years sober, Surfside wouldn't be anything, and that's 12 people wouldn't have jobs, and that's 140 guys wouldn't have had the opportunity, to get sober and really be immersed in 12-step recovery, like, because I would have just been comfortable with doing my day, right? Waking up, going to work at the methadone clinic, coming back, going kite surfing in the afternoon, and that's it. I mean, that was my day. Like, by 2 o'clock, I was done work. I put in 8 hours. Who cares about the regular world? Get in the ocean, and that's it. And it was, but like, I wanted more out of life. Like that, I think what happens with folks in general, I think it happens more so with folks in recovery, is we get to this place where we flatline, and there becomes this like nagging like in our heart. And if we've done enough work and if we've been listening to that nagging, one of two things are going to happen. We're either going to grow or we're going to go. And a lot of guys early in recovery where they like, they get clean and they're like really content and they're happy in their recovery. And then all of a sudden they start like, they're getting the itch, right? So maybe it's like hanging out with girls they shouldn't be hanging out with, or whatever, like taking jobs that they know are really probably not good jobs for them, like late at night and in bars and stupid stuff.
I mean, I kind of went through something a little bit recently. I worked for Ian for better part of a year as a house.
It was more than that.
Yeah, no, I think it was like 13 months as a house manager and then a recovery specialist. And then, I got a job in the radio industry, like selling advertising space. And the same thought process was like, I kind of felt like I wasn't moving up or anything like that. And I kind of had like that, almost like that nagging feeling that, I should be doing more, And that's pretty much par for the course for me in any sort of employment that I've ever had. I stick around for a year, 2 years. And then if I don't see opportunity to move up or opportunity to grow, I go. And that's what happened. And then, kind of chasing the money, kind of looking for something different. Like, I like the whole media, the realm of media, whether it's like video, audio, graphic design, anything like that. And then, I realized I was miserable. I was essentially just, cold calling all day. And the company I worked for, they were fantastic people. I had a great boss there. The environment was good, but it just ultimately was unhappy. And that's when I came back, and that I think that nagging feeling kind of went away. Because I was doing something I wanted to do.
When you were with Surfside as a recovery specialist, how long had you been looking for another job? Like, I had this suspicion. You were looking for one for a little while, but like, how long were you like seriously looking for another job?
Yeah, well, I tend to always just keep my eyes open.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd say seriously, probably for about 2 or 3 months. That's usually.
Did you have like any other like legit interviews or anything?
Yeah, I had actually one with another radio station. The reason I got offered the job there, but I turned it down because they didn't do anything in the digital world. They're straight radio. And I was talking to the guy in there, and I was kind of just like appalled that they weren't. I mean, radio is a tough sell as it is, even though a lot of people actually listen to it, but they weren't doing any sort of digital advertising. And that's the way everything's going. So it was kind of like a dead end thing. So, I mean, but yeah, that's typically my mentality is you always look, because you never know what's going to happen. Either you can get cut, something bad could happen. Even if everything's going great, better opportunities are always out there. So
So when this is right. So back to like the morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that morning routine for me is really where I look at my priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I was taught early on that priorities are the things I do. They're not the things I say I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'll repeat that. Priorities are the things I do. They're not the things I say I'm going to do.
Right.
So when we started Surfside, for that matter, I never in a million years thought we were going to have 12 employees.
Right. Or how many beds is it at now? I don't even know.
We have 37. So for phase 1 and phase 2, we have 18, and then the rest would be phase 3 and phase 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought it was going to be that. And I mean, I never started the business with the idea that I was just going to like take lots of vacations and work whenever I felt like, and it was just going to be this I work for myself. Like for me, it was never like that. It was that, like I was just really tired of watching the same crap over and over. Like literally, the next great program opens, and and they're the exact same as the one down the street,
right?
But yet they're selling another bit of goods to somebody and they have no idea what they're even looking at. So for me, it was like I just really wanted to provide something different, and with a lot of hard work and a really, really fantastic team, like we provide something different.
Mm-hmm.
And now like with the idea of this podcast is really just trying to get information out to people. Like I don't. It's not about whether people come to Surfside or not. That doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying earlier, like we don't have enough informed consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So my morning, like as I listen to these different like podcasts, as I really kind of prep for my day, it like gets me set. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it gets me focused on like what's my mission? Like why did I wake up today? Like what am I really trying to get accomplished?
Yeah, it sounds like it's all about really setting the intention,
Correct.
and that essentially is any sort of prayer or meditation that I've come across. That's the main idea, is to set some sort of intention or purpose to your life, and I think that's really important for anybody, not just people in recovery, but probably especially important for people in recovery.
We're nuts. I mean, look. I mean, we are nuts. Like, we are not necessarily the healthiest people. I mean, it's
right.
If you think about it, right, like 12-step recovery is founded on like one adult helping another adult.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally saying to another grown man, "Would you help me?" That is so against our norm, right?
Right. And I don't really know if it's against other people's norms, but I definitely know it's not really what I do.
No, I mean, no. And quite honestly, like if it was what we do, like people would go to detox and we would say at detox, reach out to another person, ask them for help and you'll be fine. And they would do that.
Right.
And then they would be fine. and that would be it. And the reality of it is that's it's so much harder than that.
Right.
So in terms of like back to our morning stuff, you know, some people eat breakfast in the morning.
Right.
Have something.
Do you eat in the morning?
No. I typically don't eat until 12 or 1 o'clock.
Really? Okay. Just caffeine and seltzer water until then?
Pretty much. I do, by default, I do intermittent fasting. So
okay.
It wasn't necessarily something I like researched and decided I was going to do. I typically don't get hungry until roughly noon.
Right.
And I also find that, so schedule in the morning is like one of those really important things, like figure out what's gonna go on. So for me, going to the gym is one of those important things. If I eat too much before I go to the gym, I get sick. It's not
right, or you don't want to go.
Yeah, I'm like too lethargic. It's not conducive. So what I found is that, you know, if I eat a really big meal around noon, and then I go to the gym around 5, I can get a really solid workout in, and then I can also eat after when I'm done.
Right.
And you know, for me, like being sober is not just about not using. It's really about like growing in general. So, you know, I try to, and I fail a lot, but I try to stay in a very small caloric deficit. So I try to eat under 2,300 calories a day.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin when that comes. I just eat whatever I want to eat.
So I
tracked
everything I ate for like a year and a half.
Okay.
So I have a general idea of like what that looks like. And because like, so like there's health problems that run in my family. You know, and I'm of that age where like
you got to start thinking about it. Yeah, you got to start thinking about it.
You know, eat 5 donuts every day.
Right.
I did the other day, but you know, it's like I can't do that. I have to really pay attention, and again, like why would I want to get sober and then become incredibly overweight and be miserable?
Right.
I might as well just drink.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The one thing, me and a good friend of mine, we always talk about the one thing that my program or my life really lacks the most is always that like physical activity component. It's not to say I'm not always moving, because I feel like from the moment I wake up until I go to sleep, there's not like I'm not sedentary for a really long period of time. Like I'm always doing something. Whether or not that's constructive physical activity is kind of up for debate. But that's something I try to do. And even on like the eating aspect of it, I used to just eat really whatever I wanted. Now I'm a little more conscious. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm like counting calories or anything like that, but I'm not eating like, you know, burgers, fried food all the time. And that was really part of living at Surfside too. One of the things that I didn't really expect to happen or kind of noticed it happen, but I don't really drink soda anymore, nor do I really eat any fried food. And I think that was just part of like living in the house and us just not having that, and then being away from it for, 6 months. Then when I started eating it again, it just didn't agree with my body, so I stopped eating it.
Well, what happened is you started to then budget, right? Like, so like, you weren't eating it, then you started to budget, and then you started to realize like, wow, that stuff is actually really expensive, and I haven't been eating it, and I don't particularly need it.
Right.
And your palate starts to readjust, because that's one of the things about food is that like your palate adjusts to what it's getting, right? So when we talk about like genetically modified food, like yogurt, for instance,
I hate yogurt.
Cheez-Its, whatever. I mean,
yogurt.
like literally, this stuff is like constructed so you eat more.
Right.
Like they literally design it. I mean, if you think about a Cheez-It, like once you crunch it, it becomes this like mushy.
I love Cheez-Its.
But they're right. But they're fantastic. But yet, like this certain level of like crunch to saltiness. Right. Yogurt is the same way. Like if it's too runny, it's no good. If it's too thick, it's no good. It's just perfect. It's right sweetener. And it's designed to get us to eat more and more and more and more. It's a giant scam. Yeah, basically.
The thing I'm trying to cut down now is on like white sugar, because I know I ingest entirely too much just in my coffee. Like I don't put creamer in my coffee. It's just like a scoop of sugar, and it's a big scoop of sugar. And every morning I've been trying to just cut it back. What I really need to do is just start drinking it black and just suck it up until I get used to it again. Because that's how I originally drank coffee when I first started. But yeah, I mean, since I've gotten sober, I pretty much maintained the same weight. I sit at about like 171, 172, where before I got sober, I was, I'd get clean again and I'd go up to 180, and then I'd, start using again, and I dropped to like 135, 140, 150, and it'd always be this like fluctuation. And my weight's maintained. I mean, I'm definitely thin, but that's just my body type. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of leveled off. I think on the morning thing, what I try to do is I'm very old school as far as like writing down, and I'll plan my day out by time, and then I have like things on the right side of the page, and those are things, if I get to them, I get to them. If not, they just keep getting brought over to the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's good. I mean, I think organization is key. No matter what it is, you just have to be organized with what you're doing.
Did we put a number on how many tips we're giving?
No, we didn't.
So I think the three biggest are what
we're doing 3 tips.
3 tips. Take some quiet time,
right?
Whatever that looks like, for some sort of like inventory, self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
No screen time for a few minutes. And some sort of like schedule and organization.
Right.
The food thing, if you're a food guy, eat food. If you're not, don't.
Yeah, I think that's dependent on the person.
Yeah, it really is. But those are the 3 big ones I would suggest for anyone, is like take some quiet time for some sort of self-reflection. Think about your 24 hours ahead.
Right.
And what was the last one? Why did I just go blank?
Quiet time. Stay away from the screen.
Oh, yeah. Stay away from the screen for at least a few minutes.
That's a good thing to do before you go to bed, too.
Yeah.
I try not to watch any TV or anything before I go to bed, or stay off my phone. It's best to read. But those are the 3 tips that we just came up with. Really just from, I guess, practical experience, you could say. So stay tuned for the next episode of the podcast.
What are we talking about?
I'm not sure yet.
MAT.
Yeah, medicated assisted treatment is going to be on the next one. So that's Suboxone,
Vivitrol, methadone.
Yeah. I don't know, antabuse, if people still even use that.
Yeah.
So make sure you check us out on our Instagram page, Surfside NJ, our Facebook page, which is Surfside Structured Sober Living, our website, structuredsoberliving.com. We're also on Twitter, and we've been getting some good interaction on that, and our handle is Surfside SSL. Stay tuned for podcasts and any other interesting content to for you or for someone in the recovery community.